Welcome back, guys. I finally watched Black Mirror. I caught up to season 4 and actually didn't start watching Black Mirror until just a month ago. But I finally watched every single season, and I am going to tell you guys my top 10 episodes from season 1 through 4. Now, originally I was planning on doing a video on my overall thoughts of season 4, but then I came to the conclusion that actually, I like every single season. Obviously, there are some episodes that I like more than the others, but I can't say that one season is better than the other, except for the fact that I like certain episodes better than others. I feel like Black Mirror overall has great episodes, great anthologies in each one of their seasons that I could say that any season is good. Some people say season 4 is like the weakest or the best, so I've heard mixed things here and there, but I think season 4 is actually pretty good. I liked actually like 3 of their episodes on there, except 2 I would say. I think that they weren't the strongest, but at the same time, they were good. It's just not my favorite. And I think that Black Mirror is that, you know, it's based on ideas and it's gonna hit everybody differently. Like the message that they get across will hit someone else. Maybe you'll like a concept differently than others. So once I start like telling you my list, you guys will kind of understand, you know, what kind of episodes I like from Black Mirror. And before I begin, I just want to throw up here a spoiler warning. I will talk about spoilers, hopefully not that many major spoilers, just to like get a little bit more into what I liked about the episode. So starting off with number 10, it's gonna be Shut Up and Dance from season 3, episode 3. Now, like any episode in Black Mirror, every single episode has a twist, obviously. But this one, I could say that it feels the most real. I feel like this would actually happen in real life because we do have hackers nowadays, and obviously there's a whole lot of blackmail going on. But basically, we are introduced to this kid who just seems like a normal kid, and then out of nowhere, he starts watching porn, and you later find out that's kind of like illegal porn, beats it off, and then these hackers record him and start telling him, hey, we're gonna share this video to everybody unless you do this one thing for us. And so these demands start to getting more absurd as the time goes on, and then he even meets up with Jerome Flynn, who's under the same kind of like blackmailing, and then he has to do these certain things for that group too, and they're like being guided through text messages. So the entire episode becomes that, and when we get to the end, we find out that there's a whole network of people working to find out, you know, what these people are going to have to do. And it's pretty twisted, and it's kind of a sad ending to all of it because you find out that it's just not 2 people involved in this blackmailing thing. It's actually a whole bunch of them. And the main thing about this episode was that I actually feel like this happens in real life, and I feel like this one can actually fit into our actual timeline now instead of like some future like 20 years away from now, like the other episodes. Moving on to number 9 is going to be Playtest. This is from season 3, episode 2. Now, this kind of reminded me of when people play those virtual games that are like just concentrated on horror. You kind of like walk around the room and then like a spider or like some ghost comes at you and you just get scared. We have like this American traveler who's like, I forgot what part of Europe he was in, but basically he's in Europe, you know, he's hooking up with this one chick and he realizes that he's like short on cash, but he has this application that will allow him to like make quick cash on the side. So he decides to join this little like the title says, like a play test. He's gonna like be a tester of a game, which is a virtual reality. And once he goes in there, you know, he's like, you know, no phones, no nothing. You just sit on a chair. They put like this little thing in the back of your head and boom, it takes you into this virtual reality game, which is pretty cool because they tell him, you know, this horror game is gonna be based off your actual, you know, fear, like however your brain works or whatever. So the entire episode becomes very interesting because what seems to be fake kind of becomes reality to him. And it's the viewer, myself, it kind of gets hard to determine, you know, what he's seeing is actually real or if it's part of the simulation. And until we get to the very end, we find a really dark, twisted turn that was super interesting to me, that I feel like, I don't want to spoil it, but I feel like 1 second of his time was insane. And if you guys seen the episode, you exactly know what I mean by that ending. Now moving on to my number 8 is the one called Crocodile. Now this one starts with a tragedy and ends with a tragedy. Hopefully that didn't spoil anything. But basically we have this couple who are coming out of a party. They're like traveling back home, I'm guessing, and it looks like they were just having fun, and out of nowhere, like this bicyclist gets in front of them and runs him over, kills him, and then, you know, they're deciding what to do with it. Eventually they throw him off the ledge of this mountain or whatever into the river. And now after some time has passed, you know, these memories come back to haunt Mia, and then she ends up on this raging path of like destruction of herself. And at the same time, while she's trying to get rid of these memories, we see another accident occur that this other chick, Sasha, Molina, I think her name is. She starts to investigate, and this is where it gets pretty cool because she uses this device that basically will interview somebody, and at the same time you can see what this person's memory of that time was, and that's how she does it. You know, she'll go into her memory, she'll see if there's somebody in that vision or whatever, and then she'll try to pinpoint that person. And when this story finally combines these two timelines, it is very interesting and graphic, and it turns kind of into a horror murder mystery, which is what I like. I'm really into murder mystery movies, and the most bizarre thing about this episode was that a guinea pig is what saves it at the end. So I don't know what you guys might think about that. Moving on to my number 7, guys, is gonna be Black Museum. Now this anthology has like multiple anthologies kind of in one episode, which was pretty cool, and I like the structure of it because basically you have this girl go into this Black Museum, which is a museum of all these artifacts that have like been saved by this crazy guy, I would call him. And the proprietor starts telling her all these stories from these different artifacts that he has collected. And then later we find out that all of these things that he has stored in this museum are failed tests or failed like technological advances that he has tried on people. And it's very crazy. I mean, there's one where you can kind of like feel emotions from other people, and it's very sexual and kind of interesting, to be honest. And then there's another one where you kind of capture somebody's soul virtually, and you know, you kind of make them suffer, or you can make them do anything as long as they're trapped in a room. And also somehow sharing somebody's consciousness within your own head. Like I thought that was very interesting. Now this episode was kind of hard for me to believe, obviously, because you know, it goes so into depth with all these crazy stories, and it kind of made it seem like it was wrapping up Black Mirror because it threw so many things in there. But at the same time, what I really liked about this episode was the ending to the story, because it kind of connects all those 3 different things all together very well. So I would say definitely check that one out. Number 6, guys, to me is going to be Hang the DJ Season 4 Episode 4. Nowadays we usually have like Tinder, Match, I don't even know what other dating apps we have, but we have those, right? But in this story we actually have a civilization which is pretty much determined by this little pod looking thing called Coach, and it basically tells you who you're gonna date, when you're gonna date, where you're gonna meet, and you know, how long you have to date this person, how long you have to be with them. Literally, you have to be with them, and this thing will determine after so many dates who your perfect match is gonna be, which is very interesting. And once you find your match, you get to leave this world that they're living in. It's basically like they're trapped in a wall, but nobody's complaining. But at the center of this story is Amy and Frank, which had great chemistry in the first date, and it sucks because they only had 24 hours to be with each other, and it was such a great episode because you really didn't know, you know, where they were going with this date. Like, what do you do with a date where you have 24 hours to like go to this house, spend the night with them apparently. There's a bed for you, there's a shower, there's everything. And basically you have to figure out what to do with this person. And the chemistry that worked off these two was great. And at the same time, throughout the entire episode, they obviously have to date other people. And it makes it very funny. It's very like dark in humor, just like any other episode, but it makes it for a lot of awkward sex scenes and funny moments too. But what I really liked in the story was mainly the chemistry of these two. Now moving on to my top 5, I start off my number 5 with the entire history of you. Now this one was awesome because of the concept, because there are a lot of times where I forget things and I wish I could just go back or rewind my memory and see, you know, what I did yesterday or where I left my keys. That's like a major one. But basically it takes this concept of where they put like this little grain or some kind of little chip in your brain where you can like have this little remote, rewind your memories and see what you were doing. That's awesome. But then points out a lot of its flaws. Like for example, the guy in the story, he goes to this dinner where he finds out that his wife may have had a fling with one of her old friends, so he starts getting like super insecure. He tries to find out, we find out a lot of things, you know, that him, his wife, his kid may not be his, and the story just takes a dramatic turn. And then in the end it just becomes even crazier because of the things that this application can do. Like you can actually delete memories from your brain, like if you were on your computer stored on a hard drive, which I found it freaking insane. Take away what you want from this episode, because I thought it was an amazing episode, especially coming from season 1, which I think is probably a strong season because I think that's what set Black Mirror up to be a great show. Moving on to my number 4, guys, is gonna be USS Callister season 4 episode 1. This one probably had to be the best opening to an episode because I felt like I was watching an episode of Star Trek. Like everything felt right about that opening shot, like the way that it was structured, the way that it was shot, the way they were acting or portraying these characters. But then we come to find out that this was all part of this gaming system called Infinity, which is kind of like a virtual game, I again, kind of like in playtest. Jesse Plemons from Breaking Bad is in here, which I think he's awesome. And he plays this CTO of a company who kind of doesn't even act like one. Everybody thinks he looks like an intern or just treats him like shit. So he literally kind of treats the people in his workplace, puts him in this game, and he makes himself the leader. He makes himself like a boss. And in the game itself, he's kind of like a bully. But at the same time, within the game, we realize that these people are kind of like, you know, actual people, like virtual people that have their own thoughts and consciousness. Whenever we get the introduction of this new team member that has joined just because of him, he throws her in the game and she's not wanting to take any of his demands or anything within the USS Callister game. You have virtual people within the game trying to like beat this bully by using or blackmailing their actual selves in real life. So I really like that. It was very suspenseful, and I like how they played with a lot of like the gaming stuff. It felt very Star Trek-y, and I'm pretty sure a lot of like people who are into Star Trek are going to enjoy this episode. Now moving on to my number 3, guys. I feel like this one's probably not one of the strongest episodes to some of you guys, or to many, but Men Against Fire was one of the most disturbing ones. But in this story, we follow along Stripe, who's part of the military. He finally gets to go out into a village where some roaches have been spotted, and basically the roaches are these vampire mutated looking type of people that spread like diseases and whatnot, and they have to be eliminated at all costs. That's the only thing they can shoot at. They can't shoot at people or anything like that, but if they see a roach, kill it instantly. Now that's the way that we are introduced to roaches, but later we find out that it's different. The whole concept of the way that this military is ran is very interesting. Like the whole concept of human survival goes to an extreme in this one, because they're gonna do anything for you to keep these people safe. I would say that the ending to this story is very sad because of the reality that the soldier's Stripe is shown. So I feel like it will hit some sour spots for a lot of people, and I'm pretty sure that's why a lot of people didn't like this episode. But I like that twist. I like that it comes down to this reality of like, oh, you joined the army, now you have to do everything that they have put on the table for you. So one thing's for sure, read the hard print on any document, guys. Don't just join anything without reading anything, because it basically comes down to that. Number 2 could easily interchange with number 1 for a couple reasons, but for now this is how it's going to be. So number 2 is going to be the national anthem, guys, from season 1, episode 1, because I feel like if Black Mirror had started maybe with a different episode, it wouldn't have had the same effect it would have had on people. It opens up with the most outrageous demand ever. We basically have Princess Susanna, who got kidnapped. The kidnapper demands the prime minister that if he doesn't show himself on live TV fucking a pig, then he's gonna kill her, and he has no other choice but to do that before the kidnapper kills her. Like, how crazy does that sound? Now this episode was very hilarious to me, even though I know some of my friends didn't find it hilarious at all. They just thought I was weird, but I think the dark humor and satirical comedy that was going on was great and phenomenal. And the whole time seeing this prime minister do everything and anything basically to like try to find the kidnapper and her location at the same time, with the time clicking, you know, before he has to go fuck this pig, it's just amazing. And the way that the episode ends is just so messed up, and it's just like, why, you know, why did this all have to happen? If you guys hate this episode, I can totally understand, but to me, I loved it. I thought it was hilarious, and like I said, you know, if it wasn't for this episode, I probably wouldn't have been into Black Mirror as much from the get-go. And moving on to my number 1, guys, the one that I still think about is gonna be White Christmas, season 2, episode 4. By far my favorite one, I would say, on top of National Anthem, but like I said, it can interchange. But this one was funny, it was disturbing, and even scary because of the things that happen in this one. And it's kind of like Black Museum. We have like different stories being told by these two people, one played by John Hamm, and we are introduced to these characters into like this house. It looks like it's abandoned, surrounded by like snow. It's about to be Christmas and stuff like that, and we really don't know what they're doing. All we know is that they're gonna be working or something like that. But John Hamm, you know, basically says, you know, dude, you never talk, you never like speak to me, so you know, like, we got to make the time pass. So John Hamm opens up, starts telling us about how he was like a dating consultant and whatnot, which I think was awesome. So then we move on to the other story where we talk about getting some kind of like genetic gene out of you, and basically turns it into a Google Assistant, Siri or Alexa, but with their own consciousness, kind of like in USS Callister. And I like how John Hamm has to become like this kind of like customer service guy, where he has to train this little version of you to follow your every single command, basically like make your coffee, do your meetings, read your text messages, call people. But at the same time, it's very sad because you kind of feel bad for this virtual version of themselves because they have feelings. So it's kind of like, why should I feel bad for a computer generated person that shouldn't even have feelings but has feelings? It's very messed up. The ending that we get is one that is super messed up, and I mean, the ending to these two people is just really sad and disturbing. Take away what you want from this episode, but this one really made me think, guys, and it's one of the episodes that I would say is the one that got to me the most. But guys, that is my list. I hope you guys liked it. Go ahead and leave your top 10, top 5, or just any of your favorite ones down in the comment section below. Also, let me know what you guys thought about my list. It's obviously my list, so who knows what you like, if we have the same list, or what your number one is. But guys, if you guys are new to my channel, please go ahead and subscribe. Also, give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to turn on notifications, and like always, stay tuned.